My faith came alive when I understood the historical, actual physical reasons for believing in Jesus. And your explanation of the reasonable, rational approach to understanding the resurrection and the reasons for believing in the resurrection really took my heart by storm. So I just would like to hear you talk through what reasons a skeptic has to consider belief in the empty tomb of Jesus.
Yes, I did my doctoral work in theology at the University of Munich in Germany on the historicity of Jesus' resurrection. And although at that time as a Christian I believed Jesus rose from the dead, I frankly had no idea of how firm the historical credentials for that event are. There are 5 facts that are widely agreed upon by the majority of New Testament historians today, whether conservative or liberal, Christian or non-Christian.
Right.
And these would include that Jesus of Nazareth died by Roman crucifixion for claiming to be king of the Jews. Secondly, that his body was then interred in a tomb by a delegate of the Jewish Sanhedrin, whose name we have, Joseph of Arimathea.
Right.
That tomb was then discovered empty on the first day of the week by a group of Jesus' female disciples. That thereafter, the various individuals and groups experienced appearances of Jesus alive after his death. And finally, that the original disciples suddenly and sincerely came to believe that God had raised Jesus from the dead despite having every predisposition to the contrary. Now, in support of each of those 5 facts, there are multiple lines of evidence that I lay out in the book, so that the vast majority of New Testament historians today are convinced that those are factual, historical.
Yeah.
The question then is, how do you best explain them? And here various hypotheses have been proposed. The conspiracy hypothesis, the hallucination hypothesis, the wrong tomb hypothesis, and what I call the resurrection hypothesis, that God raised him from the dead. And I think that when you assess these alternative historical hypotheses using the standard criteria for weighing historical explanations, like explanatory power, explanatory scope, plausibility, degree of ad hocness or artificiality, and so forth, that the resurrection hypothesis emerges head and shoulders above any of these naturalistic alternatives, and that therefore by far the best explanation of the evidence is the one that these original disciples gave. God raised him from the dead.
Wow. So all of the 5 facts are historically attested, and many of them not just in the Bible or by the scriptures. It's attested, these facts are attested by other historical ancient sources that coincide with the scriptural attestations of Jesus, these events of his death and burial and resurrection. And the point Dr. Craig makes so profoundly is that if all these 5 things are historically attested, then they must be explained. And the hallucination theory you didn't mention, but that's my favorite explanation, sort of ridiculous explanation of folks that really get backed into a corner with those 5 facts because Jesus really died on a Roman cross.
Yeah, these naturalistic explanations are so bad.
They're so bad.
That you will typically find that those who do not believe in the resurrection of Jesus don't propound any of these naturalistic alternatives. Instead, they just remain agnostic. They just say, something incredible happened that Easter morning, and we don't know what it is. And so they simply have no explanation